What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is a former hedge fund manager turned professional poker player turned author, Bill Perkins. Bill Perkins has got a brand new book out titled Die with Zero. You can find the link in the description down below if you want to buy a copy. I am also giving away a copy of his new book on my Instagram page. You can find the link to that in the description down below as well. Don't forget to smack that subscribe button, tap the like, and let's jump into it right now with Bill Perkins on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, first-class father, Bill Perkins. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm a first-class father, but I'm a father.
All right. Well, on this show, you're a first-class father. Let's start like this. How many kids do you have, and how old are they?
Okay, so I have one stepson, and I have two daughters, so a total of 3, 13, 16, and soon to be 30.
Wow, okay. What type of sports or activities are they into?
Both my daughters are into soccer, volleyball. One just started lacrosse, the younger one. Those are the type of activities. They're definitely into TikTok. You know, I guess it's an activity there. My youngest also, they were both into dance, like competitive dance, but they just stopped because the other sports are taking a lot more of their time. The elder one is in LA, and he's basically working on, what's the guy, Dr. Phil's show. He wants to be in film production. So,
okay, very cool. If you could, Bill, please just take a minute here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Bill Perkins. I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey. I went to University of Iowa to play football and chase women, and then got a degree in electrical engineering. Came back, worked on the exchange as a peon, worked my way up in commodities trading, and now I run a hedge fund called Skylar Capital, primarily focused on natural gas energy trading. I also do investments on the side. I used to like to make movies, very expensive business. I like to travel, and I like to enjoy life.
Yeah, very cool. My wife's from Jersey City. It's a little slice of heaven on earth there. So I worked in Jersey City for many years as well. So
Wow.
I love the connection there. Now, along this journey that you had here, Bill, about how old were you then when you first became a father, and how did becoming a dad kind of change your perspective on life?
Oh, wow. So I got married at 33 and roughly had a kid at 34. And it immediately changed my risk profile. So I used to ride a motorcycle. I had a motorcycle, a BMW 1600. I used to take flying lessons. I used to fly a Cessna 172R. I didn't get my pilot's license, even though I had 200 hours, because I would take a break, then come and fly, take a break, come back and fly. But the immediate thing that happened, besides the joy and love of having a kid, is like, wow, my risk profile has changed. It's not just me anymore. I don't have the right to take certain risks because I have this other human being that I'm responsible for. So that was I remember that vividly, like how I was like, wow, I got to recalibrate the stuff I'm going to be doing, you know? And I was kind of learning on the fly, like, wow, there's a lot of dynamic decisions going on when you have a kid. Like what you have for breakfast or what you do this day or this vacation has an impact, but it doesn't affect every single decision in your life. Once I had a kid, there were just a million switches that switched, right? And the biggest one was the risk. And the second thing was I realized I was in for a lifetime of worry. I mean, as soon as we were pregnant, it's like, oh, I hope they have 10 fingers and 10 toes. Oh, I hope they come out. I hope they can read. I hope they learn. I hope, I hope they don't drown themselves. Or they don't, like you get a babysitter and it's like, the thing I used to tell the babysitters is your primary job is to protect them from killing themselves. You know what I mean? And so, my life was forever changed. Many decisions I didn't even realize I was making at that moment when I decided to have kids. And, I had to adjust and adapt in order to be there for them. Because, I always believe half of life is showing up and I need to be there, So that's one of the things I was like, okay, don't get dead on a motorcycle. Don't get dead on private flying, don't get dead doing these things, that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I know you touch on that a little bit in your book. We're going to get to that in a second here. And what you're saying is so important because right now I talk about it all the time on my show. We have a fatherless crisis going on in our country, and there's so many kids that are growing up without that father or that father figure in their life, and it's having a devastating result on our society here.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot of society's ills comes from a missing parent. And even when you're like, even when you don't think you're having an impact, you're having an impact. Like, I mean, it's so weird that we're having this podcast because last night my dad's dead, but I was having, and I didn't get along well with my father growing up. But I had dreams about him all last night, and a lot of things were connecting. Like he was doing his best, right? His best comes from what he learned. Like there were small tweaks on what he learned from his parents, and so on. So the incrementalism of him doing his best might not have been, optimal for me as a kid, but it had a massive impact on my life, the way I think, and I'm really reaping the benefits associated with having a dad, and being around.
Yeah, well said. And I think that's one of the things. My father was born in 1930. He had me when he was 50 years old. So I came along much later in his life. So I had a very different father than most of my friends did. And you know what? Nobody is perfect. And I think what we could do as sons, learning from our father, take the good, try to get rid of the bad, and try to add something new. When I became a dad, I have 4 children myself. So I try to apply what I learned, what I thought was good, eliminate what was bad, and just add some new stuff that I've learned from just listening to other dads and other people that have been, around the block once or twice. So there's so much now for men out there, at least stuff like this. This is one of the reasons why I have the podcast, is to have these resources for other new dads that are coming on the scene. Because I think just keeping our young families, our young dads engaged and involved is so important to the future of our society here. So, and touching on that, Bill, what type of disciplinarian are you as a dad, and is that different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
It's not as different as it would like to be, and I'll just maybe I think it was yesterday or the day before I had a sit down with my eldest daughter, and I said, listen, you're a different person than me. And you and I need to find a way to communicate and make this thing work. I love you more than anything. I am on your side. I have your back. But, I've learned things, and I'm not saying I'm doing them right, from my parents that I don't want to do, but it's in me. You know what I mean? Some of those things in you, like you're like, oh, I was raised on heavy corporal punishment. Might be considered child abuse nowadays, right, by my dad, right? And I didn't want to do that, although we had a little corporal punishment as they're younger, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just really want to teach my kid, hey, there are consequences, and they're harder out in the real world, right? And so the main thing I try and get across from them is kindness and the ability to adapt, But with the discipline, it's not like, hey, I want to hurt you, or I want to, you deserve this. It's like life has consequences, and this is going to be the layup consequences. I take your phone for a couple of days, or I put you in timeout, or whatever it is. The world is much more harsh and less forgiving. And so I want you to think about these things, and I want you to have consequences so that you learn from these mistakes that you're making in a loving environment, that the world is not as loving and is not as forgiving. And so that's kind of our approach to discipline. Of course, especially in teenage years, or, we get frustrated. I'm just as human, and I make mistakes. So I have a lot of apologies coming out to my kids, like, shouldn't have yelled, I shouldn't have done this, etc. But really, if I was playing perfect daddom, in my mind, right, it would be a learning. Every mistake or whatever would be a learning session, not just by punishment, but just like, hey, this is why we don't do this. This is what can happen. This is why I'm trying to set you up this way. I'm trying to instill a level of discipline in you so that you can overcome difficult tasks and approach any obstacle and go over it and know that you can get through it. Those type of things. Not just a discipline like, hey, you're doing something bad, don't do that, but just the discipline to follow through on your word and keep your word and chase your goals and take one step after the other and just keep going until you climb the mountain. That's kind of where I would like to be. Now, the real Bill, he's all too human, right? And he's got a little bit of, the dad who was born in 1940, pre-civil rights, right? It was like, I mean, one of my favorite songs, Stevie Wonder, Stevie Wonder as an artist, where like he talks about trying to bring tears to your eyes so your mama doesn't whip your behind, right? And like that was part of the culture. And I want to get away from that and get more into a teaching type of discipline.
Yeah, it's definitely an on-the-job learning process for sure, Bill. I mean, each one of my kids require a different style of discipline, and we just caught my 9-year-old last night sneaking his Switch and trying to play after bedtime. So now today, he's removed from all electronics, and he's walking around as if the world came to an end.
Oh my
And it's tough to
gosh.
see that, but we hope that hopefully it'll prevent him from wanting to do it again in the future. That's the whole main goal of trying to do this stuff. It is difficult when you see them all upset and sad from something that you've done to discipline them, but it's one of those things you got to kind of balance out with. You're doing it for the better good here.
Yeah, and I want to also like give them understand like, it's very hard for a kid to have that perspective. But I think a lot of the lessons, the positive lessons that my dad taught me didn't sink in. Like I was aware of them and they were just sayings and whatever, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about, and et cetera. But then, 19, 20, 21, 30, it really sunk in. And those habits or the things they instilled in me really helped me, And so, you think you're talking to a wall sometimes with your kids, but, if you look back at yourself when you were like, I'm like, how did my parents not kill me? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, but it comes out and you're not talking to a wall. They're just absorbing it. And they're not really, those lessons will eventually be some of the things that get them through a bad day, an obstacle, etc. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the prayer, really, to hope that it does hit at some point. It hits home with them. And I want to turn it over now to your book, Die with Zero here. I know in the book you say originally this was planned to be an app. What was the focus? What was the main genesis of you writing the book? And what can you tell my listeners about it?
Well, I've been reading and seeing a lot of people not get the most out of their life, right? Like they're working, and that's great. They now get to survival. And then they get so good at working, they just keep working. And they die with a bunch of money. And I was like, well, what were you saving for, right? And so the first thing people do is save for survival and some variance in their life, right? And then there might be some other things. But I've noticed like those who are working and those who save too much. They essentially delay gratification past the point where it's too late, where it's no gratification, right? And I thought, wow, what a waste of life. Like they're not really enjoying life. Like why aren't they taking vacations with their kids or going camping or going hiking if you have a little bit of money? Like what decision process, how did they get habituated into this like rat race without any kind of reward, right? And so it just pains me. It just really pains me that people were spending, thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, or insurance is paying thousands of dollars for them to live an extra 5 days on their deathbed when they could have had like, big family dinner, big family trip, vacation, etc., and not living fully and not really getting the most out of life. And so I wanted people to lose the fear and optimize their life so they can have the most fulfilling life they possibly could. And the way people have fulfilling lives is having the experiences they want to have, whether it be charitable experiences or hedonistic experiences, right? Like whether it's I want to have experience to go walk on a hike with my daughter or my friends or take them on a trip, or I want to go help people in less fortunate situations in Sudan or whatever, right? Like, but that's the stuff of life, right? That's what creates your narrative, right? Like when I say, well, who are you, what you do, you'll list the experiences you have and the things you did. And I noticed people were like basically working, which there is some enjoyment out of working, but just putting it away until it was too late. And the data shows that.
Yeah, definitely. And I couldn't help but think, as I was reading the book, thinking of a motivational speaker, Bill Bailey, who said life is more than just a passing of time. It is a collection of experiences, their frequency and their intensity. And I think, that's what we're all trying to get out of life. But how can we as dads fill our families' lives up with these experiences without that fear of jeopardizing the future?
Yeah, I think, the first thing you do is like you have to step back and say, romance is planning. You want a romantic life, you got to plan, right? And so we need to sit back and think, okay, what do we need to survive and what am I saving for? It's like, okay, there might be school, you're going to help them with college. Obviously, there's going to be a time when you're not working and that money and investments is going to have to take care of you, right? You may be working to also give a gift to your kids and you want to get it to them at the right environment. I think one of the things is to get off autopilot of just, I'm going to work, and just numbers on a screen, and think about what we are working for, right? And it takes them like get away from everything, shut it down, think about like, what am I actually working for? Okay, survival. Okay, what does survival mean? Okay, what is college? Okay, this, whatever. Okay, now I'm just aiming for experiences and fun. What experiences and when? And the when is extremely, extremely important, right? Like I as I talk in the book, there's a period when I used to watch a Pooh's Heffalump movie with my kids. And, I watch it occasionally. You want to watch Daddy? No, not now, et cetera. And then one day I was like, hey, let's watch Pooh's Heffalump movie. And they're like, Dad, I don't watch that movie anymore. Like, it's a kid's movie. I don't want to do this. I'm on to this other thing. Had I known that date, right, I might have watched more Pooh's Heffalump movie earlier, right? Like, basically, life has seasons, right? And there's certain experiences that go in those seasons, right? Like, if you didn't go to Disney World, and ride the Dumbo ride when you were young, I'm not saying everybody should go to Disney World, but if you miss that season, it's gone forever. Like, I'm not going to go to, we're not going to ride the Dumbo ride at 18 with my daughter, right? When she turns 18. And so that's true with everything, whether it's wave running a marathon, going to the park, this type of vacation, this type of experience with your kids. They have their season, and you need to make sure that in these list of experiences that you want to have with them, these enjoyable moments, these teachable moments, that you put them in the right season, what I call the right time bucket.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, unfortunately, the society that we live in here, it's where this plan is to get to 65 and then start to enjoy these experiences. And by that time, our health is in a substantially different scenario than when we're in our 20s. And we don't seem to get the same, fulfillment out of doing these things. Like, and there's certain things just because of the age and your body, you can't do anymore. So I think it kind of, it's terrible that we have this setup to work 40 years, 65, retire, and then start enjoying life. This is why I think in our schools and our education system, I think teaching financial literacy should be like one of the basic fundamentals that we're teaching kids in school, because I think financial freedom should be the number one goal you have coming out of school. What can we be teaching? What would you suggest that we teach our kids? The most important thing to teach them about money and about preparing themselves for the future.
Yeah, I think one of the things, financial literacy is a very, 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 very important thing. And I think people come out with like the basic concepts, like, wow, I can multiply and I can divide and I can do these things, right? Man, I might know some algebra, but they haven't been taught, like, if I ask anybody, like, what does net present value mean? You know what I mean? What's the value of your time? How do you convert that time into money and then back and forth and do some evaluations of savings versus spending? It's like a foreign concept to them. And so I think, parents, if they were very involved, force the issue on the schools, right? But you can't just rely on the schools. You got to bring it home yourself. And if you need to get financially literate, you need to get financially literate. I always recommend the book called Your Money or Your Life by Dominguez. I mentioned it in my book. It opened my eyes. Even though I understand it, it opened my eyes in terms of just not from a numerical basis and hard math, but just from a concept of what money is, what it represents, and how to think about money, right? Your earnings, your savings, your time, which is really the only resource you have, right? You exchange your time, exchange for money, and learning how to deal with that so that you can have the most fulfilling life based on the resources you have.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I'm loving the book, Bill. I know it's out the day that we're putting this out here. The book is available now. There's going to be a link in the description of today's podcast episode for my listeners to tap the link, get over there. I'll also be doing a giveaway on my Instagram account. What's next for you here, Bill? What kind of plans or goals do you have for yourself for the future?
Well, I mean, I'm just like every other parent. I'm trying to raise strong, independent daughters so that they're able to navigate the world and have their own adventure. For myself, I've been taking advantage of COVID where it's restricting me from a certain set of activities to be with my kids a lot, much to their dismay. Like, teenagers are like, Dad, I'm not cool anymore. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, get out of here, Dad. This is weird. Nobody hangs out with their kids that much, that type of thing. But I'm going to savor these memories for the rest of my life. And then, I'm looking at promoting this book and getting this message out so that other people have that same outlook so they can optimize their life too and get the most out of it as well. That's kind of the immediate future. And then, I'm going to get out and travel and learn. To me, learning and entertainment are the same thing. And travel is like one of the, for me, travel is the, what's a cliche? Travel is the only thing you can spend money on that makes you richer, And so I have a richer life and a more fulfilling life when I travel. So I'm looking for any spot that I can get out, whether it's a drive up the coast of California, and drive the 101, or whether it's, fly somewhere. So that's what I'm doing.
Good stuff. And I know you've traveled a lot here. So besides Jersey City, which would you say is the best place you've been with your kids?
Wow. Well, right now we're here in Croatia, and it's awesome. We used to, I had an idea back in the day to live in a European city for 3 months every summer during summer vacation. Just rent a place, stay there, so that way I can be immersed into it, right? So I'm not just running around like, oh, Eiffel Tower, oh, the Arc de Triomphe, actually immerse and understand Paris or Barcelona. And I think Barcelona is one of the best places I've been. It used to be Paris, but Barcelona was great.
All right. You know what? Last thing I'm going to hit you with here, Bill, I'd love to ask all the dads that I get on my podcast, what type of advice do you have for the new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
Oh, wow. I generally start off with any of my friends, I'm like, welcome to a lifetime of worry, but it's going to be okay, right? Yeah, I mean, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, it's just like you just constantly worried, whether it's their health when they come out the womb, they're emotional, the kid's picking on them, their education. Every parent's like, oh, my kid can read at this age and that age. And then you're like, oh, my God, my kid didn't read at that age. And then you're scrambling. They're going to be okay. Do your best. Love them. Give them the time. They're going to be okay. No parent gets it right. We just do our best. You just keep moving. It's like being on a bike. Keep pedaling. You won't fall down. So just keep at it and keep trying.
Yeah, well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. Die with Zero, available now. Link down in the description. Bill Perkins, you're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.